So there's my phone, blank, right there. And then there's the app starting up. Come on. Oh, we're doing this again. Okay, it's not going to play. I'll just drag. Right, the one I showed in the last week, I think it was, that's the one you'll start off using. And then you'll see how it's going to go from page to page. Like how, if I'm using this app, how does it get there? I don't want it to just to cut. That's boring. I want it to flow from one sheet to the next sheet. So here, my mouse comes in. That's what that little bubble represents. It clicks. You can even see it like depress. Let me click off of that so we can see it. So it comes in, it clicks, and then something happens. The bubble goes away. That's the main icon. The title screen goes up, all these icons pop in. This is the icon that I'm going to click on, so I've already brought attention to it by making it a different color than the rest of the pieces. And then click there, and then that gets bigger, the other one gets smaller, my title goes up, and then I have these text boxes that come in, and then he scrolls. Okay, so I want to see a variety of movement. I don't want all the same thing of click something, click something, click something. Do a swipe so we can see it moving. You could even have them drag the screen from left to right. So if I'm going from this screen to the next screen, I may just click on it and drag it and have it go to that next screen. When I'm at a screen like this, I could have had them click and drag and see a bunch of icons and then pick the one that I wanted to pick on. Okay? But notice how it flows. Oh yeah, it's not playing. Notice how it flows from each piece. Look at how the animation for the screen pops up. And it's not like it's a 1, 2, 3. It's a 1, 2, 3. Like everything is happening at the same time. And then there's some spots where things are happening in that 1, 2, 3 fashion. Okay? So something like a screen popping, in every application, you want very little wait time. So this has to happen quick. So as the screen is popping up, then the circle is popping up, and as the circle is popping up, then the text box is popping up too. So all of that, if you look at it, it's 603 is where it starts. Or, sorry, 604 is where it starts. And by 616, it's done. So that's like 13 frames to get all those pieces out there. And then the mouse comes out, it clicks, and then it transitions to the next one. Again, I don't want this to take very long because it's an app. If you have to wait very long on an app, you're not going to use it very much. So all of this stuff happens very quickly as to how I do that and get all of these. And then there goes my cursor again to click and then get that. Okay? And then scroll. Now you'll even notice that as he drags to scroll, it's hard to tell right away. It's there, it's just subtle, so you have to kind of watch it frame by frame. But as he clicks, you can actually see the indent go in, like he's clicking, and then drag upwards, and we still see a little bit of scrolling past that point, okay? Think of how on your phone, you swipe, it doesn't just stop the second your finger moves off the thing. You swipe, and it kind of glides to a stop, okay? So all of that stuff you have to be aware of, okay? And then obviously we have a transition at the end. Also, let's look at how the icons come in. So as these icons come in, you can see there's a specific order to them. So this one happens first, and then it goes right down the line. Okay, so each one of those came in differently. It wasn't like they all popped in. That would have been kind of boring. Now when I have my cursor come in, scooch this up, and he clicks, watch the way that they disappear is not the same way. It's actually where he clicked, the icons around it disappear first, and then kind of in this growing radius, the other ones disappear. Okay, and all of this is intentional. That was how I wanted it set up, because I wanted it to feel like if I would have clicked in the middle, then the ones around that icon would have shrunk first. And then that pops in, text pops in. these icons pop in separately. And then I scroll. And there it is. And then the last thing I'm going to show before I get into the details of this is notice how my cursor comes from off screen onto here. Okay, so it's not like it's just like initially it's not there and it comes in and clicks. And then it goes away. It was very distracting to have the cursor just sitting there doing nothing. So I wanted to feel like when the cursor is there, that's the finger coming in, or that's the mouse coming in to click on it. And then when we have this, the cursor pops back in. It just fades in gradually as the mouse is moving. It's not fade in and then move. It's as the finger is moving or as the cursor is moving, it's fading in. Also notice it doesn't go right to that one. It kind of goes up and around and then clicks on it. Again, giving it more of a natural feel. And then the same thing here. It doesn't just go straight. There's a little bit of an arc to it that fades in. And then even there, it's slight, but there's a little bit of an arc too that happens on the cursor there. And then everything just disappears at the end. Okay. Another thing I added is I did do a adjustment to my colors here, just so these felt like they were kind of in the same world a little bit better. All right, so how we start this is you have your layout inside of Illustrator. Here's page 1, here's page 2, here's page 3. You can do these things very much like you would the parallax assignment or the hologram assignment, where you do create layers for every single piece and then you import all that stuff into Illustrator. I find it's a lot more helpful to be able to just redraw the shapes inside of After Effects, just because I have a lot more control over color and shape and everything once I'm inside there, okay? So I use this as my layout. You can use it as, you know, the actual shapes. You just have to layer your stuff out. So if I were to save this, try to bring this into After Effects as is with these 3 artboards, it would only bring in the first one, okay? So I have to go and save this 3 times. I'm going to go to my artboard tool. I'm going to delete the other 2 artboards and then save this as UI screen number 1, and I would hit save. And then I hit undo, and then I delete the other 2 artboards, and then I save as screen number 2. Then I hit undo again, delete these 2 artboards, save as screen number 3. Okay, so then I would have 3 screens that would all come in. Yes, sir.
Is it okay if we like change the little bit of the layout?
You definitely can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I was wondering that.
Yeah, like I said, at this point it's a template. If you're in the industry and someone gives you a layout, that's the layout. You don't deviate from that. So I have 3 screens. I don't need to bring them in as a composition, retain layer sizes, because I'm just using that as my guide. I'm rebuilding the entire thing once I get into After Effects. But if I did have layers, I would make sure I click that. Okay, then I drag my 3 screens into a new composition. I'm going to use a single comp. I'm going to set the still duration to 20 seconds and hit OK. So this gives me a composition that is the exact size of the layer, the composition here. Okay, and if I look at that screen, that screen, that screen, and that screen.
So you can animate on top of it.
Right. See, I did it again. I don't know how it happened. It happened last time too, where some reason I do have 2 screen 2s, but that should not have happened. But I saved it. I did save it, didn't I? I did. That's screen number 2. Yes. All right. So that should update after I hit OK. I did that last time too. There we go. All right. There we go. And this, and then that. Okay. So then what I do is I just rebuild my screen inside here. So I go to my shape tool. I throw in some guides. This definitely helps kind of line things up. The composition size that comes in is 1125. So if I put a guide, make sure I'm in the right tool here, at 560, 1125, 560. My brain is off today. 1125 divided by 2, 562. I was close. 562.5. That's close enough there. Okay, so that's the center point. So then I can go into my shapes and I can start to draw my shape here. Anytime I start scaling this, I will not use actual scale. What I'm going to use is I'm going to go into the rectangle tool, go into the rectangle path, and this is what I'm going to adjust. Okay, so I unlock this and I can use this as my sizing. And the reason for that is that as the thing scales, if I had rounded corners, which I'm going to have, it would like scale the rounded corners. So this nice rounded corner would like squish. I don't want that to happen. I want this thing to go in and keep my rounded corners perfectly as they're going in. It's a subtle detail, but you will find that your animations are full of subtle details. So I'm just going to nudge that over a bit. There we go. I'm going to scale it up a bit. I need to scale this down actually a bit. There we go. And then I'll go to my roundness, and then I can round off those corners. And then I can adjust from there. That, good. Okay. So that looks like it lines up really well with my previous one. Name everything. So this is my BG screen. Some assets will be there for every single one of these pieces. My background was there for every single one of my pieces. I didn't change the background itself. The icons flow, so sometimes I have a whole sheet of icons, sometimes I have a bigger version of that icon. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to drag this down to the bottom here, and then I'm just going to turn that off. I know it's done. Then I'm going to go into my ellipse tool and I'll draw this circle. There we go. Yes, sir. No, you're doing your own layouts. So whatever your layout is, that's what your layout is. Okay, I'm going to drop this down here. I think it's also helpful that start to color things that make more sense together. So an item that will be just on like one screen, give it one color, or just on the main screen, give it one color. Something that might be used from screen to screen, give that another color. That will definitely help. So I'm just going to color this background red, indicating to me that that's something that's going to be there forever. This main icon is only on the main screen, so I'm going to give this a cyan color. Okay? There's no rhyme or reason to what colors I pick. I just want to have some differentiation for those. Another rectangle. Oops, make sure I'm not clicked on anything. What are you doing? This rectangle. Come on, After Effects. All right. So I'm just going to double click apparently because it doesn't want to do anything else. Nope, something is definitely off. My caps lock is off. Let me just save this and reboot it. I do not undo that and save this as UI. All right. Are you opening? I thought we had more time on that, but we didn't. So now I have to ramp up. All right, there we go. So I don't know what happened there, but just yeah. All right, so let's drop that in here. Now I thought it would be kind of neat too to also have another shape kind of in the middle of this. So I just title box. So like one would be like the border of the box or the background, and then I would duplicate this and say text in title box. And then I'm going to go into my contents, go into this, go into rectangle path, and then shrink that down, shrink that down. Oops. There we go. And then give this a different color, no stroke on this, that. There we go. And obviously you want to pick colors as you're going. I'm just not picking colors just for time's sake, okay? All right, so that's good for now. I'm just going to leave that as is. There's my screen. There's my main icon, which needs a different color. We'll give it this pinky color. We'll give my background screen a dark pinky color. And we'll give my title box give the text in the title box a dark color like that. All right. Sufficient. Cool. So what I would do all the pieces. So that's page 1. So then I would go to page 2, and then I would look at what assets could be replicated. So this right here is going to be from the original one. So I don't need to rebuild that, because all I'm going to do is take that title box and slide it up after they click the button. So I'm not going to build that again. Each one of these pieces will be rebuilt, okay? So I'm going to go into a new comp, and I'm going to make this square. I'm going to make this 500 pixels by 500 pixels, which is huge. This is a 1800 pixel image, 24 frames per second, and 30 is fine. Okay, now the reason I'm going in here, I want to make one animation and then be able to loop that. So think back to page transitions. We made one animation, we imported it, and then we were able to offset it. That's all I'm going to do. So I'm just going to double click this, which automatically drops it in the middle. I'm going to go to the size of this and shrink it down some, go to the roundness and shrink that up some, like so. Cool. Call that button. And then I'm just going to give this a color. It's going to be more in this area, and then I'm just going to animate it. Rotate. So this is how I animated the other one. So I set the scale at 0. I set my rotate at -90. I went up. Remember, this has to be quick, so I don't have a lot of time in this. So I went up 10 frames, it looks like. There we go. So this is the slow version of it. That's only 10 frames. Then I do my easy ease. Then I do my speed graph. Let me zoom in so I can see it. There we go. Cool. And then just add a little bit more life to it, because that's still kind of boring. I went right before the end of this. So like right about there is the end of it. I pumped this up to like bigger than the size that it needs to be. So 110, I think it was. There we go. So that gives it a little bit more of a pop. I'm just going to adjust some of these other settings. There we go. That feels better. Okay. Now I have to watch out so that it doesn't go past it like this. Because when I bring it into the other comp, it'll cut it off, and I don't want that to happen. I don't want to adjust the scale at this point because that would ruin it, but if I went into my contents, went into the rectangle, and just shrunk this down to like 400, or even less, let's say 380, now I have plenty of a margin there that it doesn't have an issue. So I'm going to rename this button anim, and then I can just drop this into here, scale it so it fits. Oh my God, that was almost perfect, wasn't it? Yep. Now, my rounding from Illustrator may not match up, but it doesn't need to. As long as it looks, like they go together, it's fine. So there's one. I'm just going to duplicate it and scoot it over. I'm going to duplicate it and scoot it over. Yeah. Now, something to keep in mind, as it duplicates, it always moves it up one layer. So as I'm considering how I'm going to animate this, I want things to start at a certain point and end at a certain point. It makes sense to keep them in the order I want to animate. So I will always rearrange my layers so that I can see this is number 1, this is number 2, that is number 3. And then when I duplicate, it'll like shuffle everything anyway. So I'll duplicate this, they're all shuffled. And then I move this down. And then I move this down. And then I duplicate again, move that down, move that down. Duplicate again. Now I'll tell you on the one that I just showed, I did not do it this way. I actually drew out one of the buttons in here, and then I tried to replace it, and it was not having it. So I actually had to do this twice. Okay. Uh-huh.
If you wanted like a bunch of those to show up and you wanted to like scroll through those, how do you do that?
When I get to, I'm going to show a little animation. When I go back into my other one, I'll show how I would do that.
Oh,
Okay. Cool. So then I would offset each one of these. Okay. And the way that I offsetted them was a variety. So it wasn't just like, you know, grabbing each one and going like this. If you remember from our page transitions, that's what we did. Is that initially I did this where I offset them 2 frames, and then 2 frames, and then 2 frames. This looks like a lot, but it's not. It goes pretty quick. Okay, and then eventually I offset on 1 frame. So the idea here would be it would start off slower. A 2 frame difference and 1 frame difference is not a huge amount, but again, it's those little details that make it work. And then this time I'm going to offset it 2 at the end too. We'll just see what happens there. So that way it'll go kind of like slower, faster, slower. So even on this animation, it's kind of like an easy ease of how the buttons are coming in. So I'll just watch that. Cool, right? Awesome. Okay, cool. All right, so I have enough here just to show how I would do the animation from page to page. First, I'm going to just throw all these down here. Okay, those just sit over there. Title box there. My UI can go off. My main icon can come on. My background can come on. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is animate the items coming onto the screen. So I'm going to go to my background screen and just start there. Again, I'm not going to animate the scale, because if I animate the scale of this, look at how gross these things look, right? We just lost it. Oh, you have nightmares about that. So I'm going to go into my contents, go into rectangle path, and animate this, because as I animate this down, you'll see I maintain nice rounded form. So there's no big difference here. I'm just going to go up to, let me fix this real quick. So somehow I'm on 50 frames a second. Let me set that to 24. All right. So I'm going to go to, I don't know, 9 I think it is. And then I'm just going to set this to have the size, go back to the beginning, and then set the X here to 0. There we go. And then same stuff as always, easy ease, jump into the speed graph. There we go, good enough for that. And then I'll go into my main icons and start doing the same thing, trying to sync all of these up. Now this one, I can animate it with just a scale because it's just that one property. It's just like animating it proportionately. So I'm going to go to scale here. And typically you want to add that extra bit of life to it where you go right before that scale is at 100 and you bump it over 100. I don't know what happened there. There we go. Then we go back into this. We go back into Easy Ease. Go back into the graph editor. And I typically like to push my keyframes so that the speed happens at the start, the speed happens at the end. And in the middle area here, we have kind of this resting period to let it process. Okay, let's go back, let's zoom out. There we go. Okay, So now everything is happening at the same time. That hurts our eyes. We also have a line here. I need to get rid of that. I don't think I need a stroke on my background. There we go. So I'm going to just take that main icon and just play with the position of it. Okay, nope, not there yet. There we go. What I want it to feel like is as one's getting stretched out, the other one is right behind it, okay? So that's what I'm looking for. This is where, you can watch all the videos, you can do, After Effects forever, but if you can't figure out how to get these timings right, you just never will get to that next step of making it work. So looking at this, it feels off still, right? So what feels off about it?
I think it's like too quick. I don't know.
The brown part opens way faster than the circle.
Than the circle.
Yeah.
Okay. But now watch what happens if I just scoot this back a couple frames. It feels like they're resting at about the same spot. It feels like by the time the circle is expanded to its biggest size, the border is already there. So it feels like it's hit the right spot. Now again, you may not know this except by doing this, going frame by frame and seeing which one looks better. Like right there, it's a little bit too quick, and the ball actually feels like it's like pushing it out. And I don't want that. I want it to feel like the frame is pulling it out. So I think maybe even just one more frame over to that side. Nope. One frame back. Right? And then if it was too slow, here's too slow. Right? No one's waiting for that icon to open up. You've closed the app and uninstalled it and read a horrible review by the time it actually does. There we go. Okay, so that's good. And then I will go to my title and text box. Now I'm going to start keeping things together so it makes a bit more sense. So these are going to be down here. Those are right there. I'm just going to go back to the beginning. Where are these at? They're at the top. I can't see them. Nope, they're right in the middle. I couldn't see them because they were the same color. Okay. I should have been able to see that. There it is. Okay. So same thing. I'm going to go to my title box first. This is square, so I don't need to worry about doing the rounding corners, and grabbing that. I can just animate scale. If you're concerned, like maybe I'll add rounded corners later, then just do the other one. Then just animate it based off of this rectangle path versus the other one. And you'll see a lot of times I'll animate something, I'll just set a key, move the key forward, and then reset this. Now I will add a bit more life to this too, because I'm actually going to go into the middle here. Actually, I'm going to go back to the beginning here, set both of these to 0. There we go. And then come up here and then set this other one to 100. And then when I do a little easy ease on this, I go into my graph. There's only 10 frames so far, so this is going to be a quick animation. So I'm not going to try to push these too far because it won't work. There we go. All right, let's solo that for a second just so we can see just that one piece. Okay, so you can see it kind of comes up and then out. I'm going to exaggerate that a bit more. I'm actually going to take the green here, come on, nope, this one, and push that closer to this side. Nope. The green is the Y, that's the one I want to happen a bit quicker. There we go. And again, it's subtle, but watch, it scales up and then goes out. Okay, kind of like the TV one when we did the page transition. And you can see like that page transition assignment is a lot of what this assignment is. Then I'm going to go to my title box and do the same thing. So I'll just go here. I'm going to sync up the icons or the keyframes. There, keyframe. Go to the end of this. Actually, let's do this one the other way. So I'm going to go into the middle of this one, and then I'll set this one to what the end is supposed to be, 590.9. Nope, I don't like that. Okay, so the end of this is 68, so I'm going to go into the middle of this and set this to 68. And then easy ease, speed graph. And I'm going to exaggerate this one just to see what happens. There we go. All right, that feels good. And now I'm just going to offset this one just so I have the main box coming and then that. There we go. I think we need to just move that keyframe over. Nope. You can see there's a little hiccup there. It just stops. I don't want it to stop. Yeah, so let's go back to that here, back to this. And I think I moved that up. No, I didn't. I don't know what I did. I'm going to reset those keyframes. Control click on them, they reset. Let's just see what that looks like. I'm going to scale that in some more. I think I want to have that a little bit more drastic as it, there we go. All right, that'll suffice for now. Nope. Why are you not getting bigger at the end? Oh, did I have them all selected? Oh, that would explain it then. There we go. So that's a lot better. I think it just easy ease this. I may not even need to go in the speed graph for it. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, and then nudge it back. And again, I'm just trying to find that sweet spot of where that works. That seems to be good. So use your work area. I'm going to offset both of these now so that they all feel in sync with that ball. So the ball comes up. As the ball is coming up, that's when these are coming up. A little bit back. And that might be too long of a transition. No, it's actually not bad. It's good. It's a little bit slower than my other one, but I think it'll work for this demo. Okay? So there's the opening for this. Boom, boom, boom. That opens. Then I want to animate a cursor. So I'm going to go to this, go to ellipse, create a shape. Grab this shape, put the pivot in the middle. Nope, for this one. And then I'm just going to animate it coming in from off screen. So you've animated stuff like this before. I'm going to scoot this so that it starts over here. There we go. Position is here, scoochie up a little bit. This is going to go a little bit slow. You don't want this to go fast. This is supposed to be a finger moving on here. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. All right, that's too quick. That's just a shape, just a circle that I just animated coming in. These? Once I added those 2 points, it just added it. So they're there, just kind of hidden. You just have to pull it out. Okay, let's see. Add some easy ease to this. You know, the finger wouldn't just like... Go. Maybe even a little bit slower. There we go. That feels better. Okay. Then I'm going to add some scale to this. So I'm going to go to about here. I leave a break, so everything pops in super quick. The finger comes in. It's not going to come in and hit right away. It's going to come in, then hit. We need to process that. So I'm going to leave a little bit of frames here. And then I'm just going to go to my scale. And then I'm going to animate this going to 80 or so, 70. That feels like a click. Okay, now you can do the same trick of making it a little bit bigger, again, just so you kind of get the idea that, you know, it's a click. I don't think I like that though. Yep, and then that should happen a bit quicker. There we go. And then as this is clicking down, then I go to my main icon, and now that should be clicking down too. Okay, so I'm going to go to add some scale keyframes here, scooch you up a bit, set this to 0. Oh, it's too quick. Let's make that a little bit longer. There we go. And just trying to find the right timing for that. I think I've scaled it up way too much. I think that yeah, it's going to like 130 for some reason. So I'm going to right click on this, set toggle hold keyframe, and I think that might help take care of it. Nope, it still goes up to 130. All right, so just control click that. There we go. There we go. Now I can speed this up some. And you'll see it's just a lot of finessing, a lot of just watching this stupid little animation over and over again, making it feel like it works. That feels a lot better than it did before. Now I also want to take that opacity down on this too. So as it clicks, the opacity of that icon is going to go away. So it clicks, and that goes down, and at the same time, that's when this is going to go down to 0. There we go. Okay, and then this is going to slide up here. So then I go down to my text box. I go to their position. Okay, wait for it to go away, and then as it goes away, then I'm going to position this, scooch up, and then position. Now I could use also a parenting. I could use a null. I could use 10 other things, but I'm just going to leave it just like that. I think is where I want to put it. I don't know exactly yet, but I think that should be good. And then a little bit of easy ease. There we go. And then trying to match up the speed so that things feel like they're all part of the same interface. And sometimes it is literally just one frame, you're moving it back and forth just to test it out. All right, that feels good. I might move these positions back a little bit just to see together how that feels. I think I want to sync it up better so that as it clicks, there it goes. So it feels like almost like it's wiping it away. There we go. All right, and now that that's done, right about here, that's when I want all my buttons to come in. So I'm going to grab that, I'm going to zoom out, and drag my buttons into the screen. And then again, working with the timing to make sure they all feel like they're coming in at the right time. And again, we're looking at literally 1 frame, 2 frame adjustments here. Okay, because what I want to do is as this comes up, let me turn off my displays. No, that didn't work. As this comes up, that's when these things are coming up. So right there, I want to start to see those. Oops, not yet. Right there. That's good. But I don't want to have any overlap. Bless you. So you'll see it's just back and forth, back and forth. Cool. Click. Okay, then my cursor would come in again, another button click on one of these, and then that button would get bigger and other stuff would come in. So I'm just going to save this, and then I'll jump back to my, that's the right one. One was 11.1, one was 11.11. It got confusing. iPhone here, iPhone there, screen here. Okay, so there's my animation. Okay, so there's the button click, there's that thing sliding up, and you'll see again, it slides up and those things pop in. There's the cursor coming back into opacity, moving up, clicking on that one, and it gets bigger. So again, there's another animation on this piece. there's another animation that makes these things go away. And then that one icon just gets bigger. Now if you bring a small item, so originally in this composition, that shape right here, right, you're so close. Oh, UI screen, there we go. Thumb icon right here. So originally this shape, this composition was a lot smaller. I think this is like 50 by 50 or 200 by 200. Let me jump back to that. So when I scaled it up, it actually got a little bit fuzzy and grainy. You can see the edges right here. This button that's right there, it's called continuously rasterize. It'll take whatever the vectors are and actually like rebuild the vectors in here. Sometimes it causes mayhem. In this situation, it works fine. So if the comp wasn't big enough, I can click that and clean up those edges. Okay. So that's just that item. Click. Scaling, and then all the other stuff is synced up so that these icons shrink, this one moves up, and then once it hits, then this box is coming down, that's just a scale. The next one comes down, that's a scale, not a scale, but resizing that content. And then I have these bars. Now, to your question, what if I did want to scroll something, okay? You need to have a separate composition for it. So here is my right column text, here is my left column text. And if I go to the right column text, this is just a composition that has a bunch of bars in it, okay? And then inside here, I've animated these things coming out, okay? So it's just one composition of them doing that. Inside this, I'm animating their position, okay? Now, what makes that work is that I have, oops, not on there, I did it a different way. I have that set matte, so if I didn't have that set matte, it would be cut off. So remember we did the track matte, so you can have a shape, cut out another shape? That's what's happening. So I'm having this outer box cut off the rest of that, whatever's hanging out. I'm doing it using the set matte, so I don't have to duplicate the layer, keep it above it as a separate one, and then try to animate that or anything later. Now when you do any kind of animation like that, think of you don't want to have anything half cut off. So I wouldn't want to stop this scroll when it's like this, because that would be weird having half a bar here and half a bar there. I always made sure that it went right to a spot that had everything kind of realigned. I also, just to give it a little bit more difference in there, where am I at? Right here. I also added a, instead of this being a duplicate, that I just duplicated all these down, I used the repeater, I've shown that before in the hologram assignment, and I just added this number of copies. And so that's how this gets created, is the first one scales down, and then it's synced up so that it scales like this, and then all those bars fall down. And that gives me the opportunity, if I needed to at some point, come into here, and add some roundness to those edges if I needed to, and it would affect all the shapes, not just the one. Okay, and I was able to use that same shape for left and right column. And then what happens too is I also added a gradient to it, so that as these things scroll, there's a definite difference, it's a subtle difference, but it's still there, in one color to the next. You can see that these are not the exact same color.
Yeah, what shape?
Right, well, it's because I changed it in the one shape. Okay, so that should take you all the way through to the end of that. Okay, you'll notice that I did do some extra adjustments. So from here, I brought this into a different composition where I added all my other details. So I made sure this was cut out, so I just used some shapes and cut it out. I added my time, I added my bars and stuff here. I added a highlight. This is just a shape. That's not it. There it is. So I just created the shape, and then I used a gradient, and then I set the mode to add. So that's what it looked like normally. It still looks almost there, but adding it to add just adds a little bit more of a highlight to it. And then I took that, and I brought it back to my image of that phone. And you'll see that it lines up. Looks like the highlights there. And then I brought that into another comp, and then I brought that into another comp. And then in here, this is where everything comes together. So I have a background, I have my motion blur on. I even adjusted the color of the iPhone so that that would have kind of a tannish, off-white, beigeish, brownish tint to it. All those words seem to fit, right? And then my transition at the end.
Is the phone like that, or you added that stuff on the outside?
This thing,
Yeah.
that's just a picture I found.
Oh.
So I just found a picture online, the one I used in the example one, and then just used that as my border because it looks like it fits there.
So you just brought it into After Effects and then layered the composition over it.
Yep.
And you mapped out that.
Yep, if I go here, nope, here, yep. There's the picture of the phone.
Oh, sweet.
And so just pop it on, make sure I'm not covering up the cameras and stuff, and it works. And then let me just save that real quick. And then I'll show you another instance of, taking this thing a step further or a step into another area here. 3D image roller. It's got to be there. Corner pin. I think that one. We'll find out. Okay, there we go. So this is another instance where this is all built inside of After Effects. So there's no Photoshop, there's no Illustrator, this is all straight inside of After Effects. And if I go all the way back here, there it is, right? So this is a green screen piece of footage that is shot, and then this is all the different layers that go into putting it on there. This is not animated as far as the pieces moving around, but if I go to iPhone hold, where are you at? Oh, you're way out. There you go. And this is going to take a second, but this is actually animated so that as the person's moving their hand around, I guess it did animate it a little bit. I have a little pop-up there that says, you have switched to an iPhone. I thought you were cooler than that.
Yeah, I was looking at that too. I was like,
Right. Well, who else would have made that, right? Bill Gates. Oops. Right. So you could take this even further and do, these kinds of things with this kind of assignment. If you saw movies and you saw Iron Man where he's holding a device, typically that is something exactly this assignment. He has an interface, maybe a hologram, maybe a whatever, but it's all tracked and lined up and synced up to that exact piece. Cool. So title cards, motion blur, easy ease, nice smooth fluid animation. Once you get going with it, it literally is just a very easy transition to the next, Just getting those minor things to flow nicely is essential. Don't move on to the next thing until the beginning of it is good. You don't want to set a bunch of keyframes and try to go back and finesse them. It won't work. Cool. Questions?